Good morning or good evening, depending on when you happen to be watching this. We are going to look at place value with decimals today. So you need to have your note taker handily available. It's going to look like that. Here is a picture of mine as well. Make sure you get that ready and you're ready to go with that. Today we are going to look at decimals 3 different ways. The first way has to do with reading decimals. So decimals are always to the right of the decimal point, and you guys know that they're like fractions, but written with just numbers and a decimal point. So on my note taker, I have this middle section that's blank right here that you can fill in right here on your note taker. Oops, sorry. It is doing something wonky, I apologize. But you can fill this in right here. I'll give you all a minute and then I'm going to talk about it. I was filling in my note taker. Here I am. So let's talk about this. The very first thing you need to know is that if you have exactly one number after the decimal point, it is called the tenth with a TH at the end. I know you can see that TH. I know that you had elementary teachers that stressed it. I cannot stress it enough. It is tenth. 10 is a whole number. Tenth with a TH is a fraction. So think very carefully about what that word tenth means. It is 7/10. So if I was to write 0.7 as a fraction, it would be 7 over. I hope you're thinking about what do you think would be 7 as a fraction. I'm going to write it down for us just so you can see it. And you could do this if you wanted to in your own note taker. It is 7/10. It is 7 out of 10 pieces. So if you think about a pizza that's divided into 10 parts, and I ate 7 of them, it would be 7/10. That's a lot of pizza. The next one is hundredths, and that is 2 decimal places, 1, 2 over. So I hope you're looking at this video. I'm going to see if I can make my screen larger. Give me 1 second. It is not seeming to like what I wanted to do, so I'm going to have to pause it. Shift P. So make sure that you have your note taker right where I am. So if you need to enlarge this and make this full screen, it might be easier for you to use. But we are on the hundredths place, and that is 2 decimal places to the right of the decimal. And it is the hundredths place because it's out of 100 little pieces. So if I was to write this as a fraction, and maybe to the side you might want to do this, I'm going to write it kind of small where the number 2 is because it looks a little different than what's up top. And I'm going to circle it and show it to you. I wrote this 7/100ths. It is 7 over 100. See those 2 zeros? Those 2 zeros mean there are 2 places for that number after the decimal, 7/100ths. Now let's look at the very last one. It is thousandths with a TH. So I hope you're guessing that the pattern is that the first one, which I wrote really poorly, 7/10, 7 over 10, 7/100, 7 over 100, but this one will be 7/1000, 7 over 1,000. I'm going to write it right below there in the number, I'm sorry, in the same numbered place, like where the 3 is, because of space. And I'm kind of a big writer and I didn't think about it, sorry. Otherwise I would have given us space in the chart. That is 7/1000. 7/1000. So we are going to move forward at mixed numbers. If you did not have that chart filled out, please press pause and go back. Mixed numbers are just what they sound like, two things that go together. They are numbers with both whole numbers and decimals, or mixed fractions have whole numbers and fractions. So mixed decimals have whole numbers and decimals, like the price of gas or the price of your milk. The name of the whole number is determined by the number of places to the left of the decimal point, just like 103. I would like you to get back into your note taker, and we're going to discuss reading decimals. There are some blanks for you to fill in, so please make sure you have them filled in based upon what you see on your screen. I will read it out loud so you know where we are. Whole numbers to the left of the decimal point. Any numbers to the right form a decimal fraction. So keep that in mind. Whole numbers to the left, decimals to the right. Let's see if I can make this thing do its thing. Oh. I think this is your blank. To the left of the decimal point, any numbers to the right form a decimal fraction. Oh, I gotta get my pointer back up. Learn it. We say and for the decimal point. And means decimal. So when I say 113 cents, that and means it's a decimal. So keep that in mind. And is for the decimal point. We have to find out what your blanks are. We find the place value where the decimal ends. And so this is a little tricky for students, but I promise with some practice, it will become easier. We say the group of numbers and end with the final place value. The final one is really important because it is how we talk about the fraction. So we say the group of numbers and end with the final place value. So I'm going to show you what we mean by that. The decimal 2164.511 is read as 2,164, that's right here, and I know you all see this and. Notice I'm going to say this as a whole group, 511. 511 is something you know as a group, and it lands in the thousand spot. This is the last place value right here. So it is the thousandths spot. So 511 thousandths. We're going to practice several on your note taker. So make sure you have this still right in front of you. I am going to change the camera a little so that we can look at how to fill this in and talk about it. There's not a place for this inside your notes, but this has to do with zeros after the decimal point. So just bear this in mind. Maybe you want to write it on the side. Maybe you want to write it in your notebook. That's up to you. Writing extra zeros after the numbers, that's to the right of the numbers, so going to your right of the numbers, or at the very, very beginning to the left of all the numbers, does not change the value. Zeros only change the value when they go in as a placeholder. So these decimals that you see in front of you are equivalent, or they're the same. So if I look at these, 0.2, I'm going to add a 0 over here on the right. I'm going to add 2 zeros. This is still 0.2 and 0.2. And we are going to say 2/10, 2/10, and 2/10. That does not change because I put some zeros at the tail end. We're going to look at how to sort some numbers into their what's called a bin, where we keep all of the place value pieces. So the first one that we're going to look at is 1.475. So my first question to you is, what that's a little blurry, sorry, 600ths, because that's what we're looking at, 600ths. Here's my next number, 89 and 682 thousandths. 89 and 682 thousandths. Notice I'm saying this as a group of numbers, but this is also in the hundredths place, so because it's in the hundredths, I am going to make it 8 over 100. It's in the hundredths place. This is going to help us when we do expanded form with decimals. You'll definitely know what we're talking about. So I'm going to make it an up and down fraction like you guys are used to seeing. Let's see if I can get it in there. There we go. So it is in the hundredths space. There we go, 89 and 682 thousandths. I said thousandths because that's where the 2 is. This is where it ends. All right, let's see what we got going on next. Ooh. That 8 is in the thousandths place. It's the very last place value. So I'm going to write 8 over 1,000. 8 over 1,000ths, because it's a fraction of a whole. You see that? 8 over 1,000ths. We have one more number. 475 thousandths. So I ended on the thousandths, but the number that I underlined was the tenths. So we're going to put the tenths on that very last line in the tenth spot. And that would make a fraction, 4 over 10. I hope you all know 4 tenths. So I'm going to write 4